Hello, YouTube. This is Insane Monster, and we are here for part 3 of What If Deku Had Spiral Power. Now, this has been a long time coming to use for a holiday special and such, though it did take a lot of typing in order to figure out key elements for this What If, in order to make it very entertaining, balance out the story, as well as making it logical and such, giving the premise, which by far pulls, with spiral power, pulls a lot of Ex Machina kind of stuff. So, yeah, with all that said, hit it. Okay, so then, currently, we are at the part where it's time for the class rep. Besides the addition with Melissa here, if you don't know, then please watch part 0 through part 2 of this What If to catch up right now. So, yeah. The whole thing with Aizawa stating that they are going to be picking a class rep right now is now up in the air, and that it's up to them to pick how to decide who will be the class rep. Now, it is still going to be Deku, okay? It's still Deku, and Momo is still vice president and such, as they do go to lunch and talk a little bit, with them talking back and forth about any sort of things that they could think of in remarks to becoming a hero and such. I'm assuming this, given that they're hero coach students and all that. But they also remark about the news, people out front of UA harassing everybody who's trying to come in, that during the morning when they were just trying to get to class. Melissa stated that it was really tough, especially since my father's so well known, especially for designing all of All Might's costumes. It was hard to get away from them. Mm. With her classmates stating, realizing that her dad is uh, basically the one who created all three of All Might's hero suits, including his starter one, the bronze, silver, and golden age All Might costume, remarking that her dad has a very well respected reputation, which does give her a good smile as he remarks, "Thanks. I even learned a lot about support gear to make the gauntlets and such that me and Izuku use." They do ask what's up with that. They know that they're dating, they can tell, but they have seem to have the same quirk besides the color that their energy produces. So Melissa thinks quickly and states that some people do have quite similar quirks that have a similar function, like the water hose heroes. Remember? As they do remember those heroes. And leave it at that. Only to be then end up with the alarm blaring, with the third year stating that there's an intruder on the grounds and that this hasn't happened in the entire time he's gone to this school. With the hallway getting packed and everybody trying to get out, Izuku ends up seeing that it's actually the media and thinks, "Ugh, seriously, what is with those people?" As he charges up his spiral power throughout his body, the along with some one for all to give it some strength in order to jump up and bounce back and forth from the walls to latch on to the area near the exit sign where he's yelling at them to be quiet and to calm down. It's just the media. So make sure you show them that you actually deserve to be here. You're UA students. Remember that. Calming everybody down. Afterwards, Nezu thanked him for uh, doing that and calming everybody down, shaking his hand. So this was after they inspected the gate that was now disintegrated. As he then remarks, asking, "Young man, have you noticed any of your classmates being influenced by you or Melissa?" Izuku sighed, stating, "Well, Melissa probably hasn't noticed as much. She hasn't had her power for as long as I have, so you might not notice. But yeah, including our classmates and teachers, a few other of the faculty members that me and her uh, basically can talk with have some slight traces, so it doesn't look like anything really manifested yet. Best bet they just need a little bit of a push, though I'm not sure what kind of push would lead or when it would actually fully happen." With Nezu stating, "I understand, though that does make me think, what about me?" Izuku looks at him and smiles, stating, "Yeah, yeah, you do seem to have some spiral energy rubbing off on you. Not sure how that's gonna affect you, though." With Buddha popping out from underneath his collar, looking at Nezu, remembering what happened to him whenever he absorbed up a lot of spiral power and evolved for a brief moment. So, yeah. After that, we get to the point to where Aizawa comes in telling them to suit up and get on the bus. As they head over to the USJ, of course, they end up talking about one another's quirks and they would be good for in scenarios in terms of being a hero. With the same as in canon, with Bakugo and Todoroki being candidates for great heroes, but Bakugo's rough attitude might be a problem. He isn't as brace or like I guess you would call it murderous intent in this, considering he grew up training with Izuku constantly, though somewhat mellowed out with him putting his pride back into perspective over the years. So yeah, Izuku is also notified that by Sue that his quirk reminds her of All Might's in a way from the strength. Though Kirishima chimes in stating, "Yeah, but All Might can't make drills or anything like that, right?" With Sue remarking that that Hiroshima has a point. As they get there to the USJ and meet 13, who leads them into the USJ, explaining this facility's purpose for training young heroes for disaster level events, for rock slides, earthquakes, uh, everything, the whole works. As, like in canon, the villains end up showing up. Aizawa orders 13 to get all the students out of there, which, well, they aren't really happy about. So, but they understand. And seeing Aizawa take them out, down one after another, Alyssa and Izuku feel a lot of respect in their teacher for going up against so many villains that would be that is a very, very big disadvantage given his quirk. So, yeah, the fight does continue as in canon for a bit as we see Kurogiri showing up in front of the students, though Bakugo keeps uh, Hiroshima back while using his charges that he has now from his quirk evolving, sending out the explosive orbs towards Kurogiri, getting in the way of 13's black hole, giving him a chance to uh, use the smoke screen from those to use his power to teleport a good number of students out, spreading them across the USJ. Izuku's still in the water zone, but uses his jetpack, uh, forcing the spiral energy he has into it out of the opening at the bottom to fly, getting to the boat. As for Melissa, she's in the same area as Jiro, uh, Momo, and Denki, though she's a bit on the opposite side of the area from them, as she uses her drill whips to lash and do a good amount of damage to the villains, knocking them out, with Sue and Mineta getting on the boat. They see that they're surrounded, with Izuku asking them about their quirks so that they can figure out what to do. So we quickly cut over to Aizawa, who's still fighting, though this time around, something's odd's happening. Whenever Aizawa looks at somebody, there's this red thorn like mark that surrounds the person he looks at, surrounding their neck. And even after he looks away from them, closing his eyes, the mark remains and they still can't use their quirks. If you're wondering how this is, the combination of the respect Izuku and Melissa see in him from seeing him fight like this, combining that with combining that with the stress of fighting so many villains, caused his quirk to evolve. Meaning that even after his he closes his eyes, they will continue to cancel the quirk as long as the red mark around their neck remains. Though the mark will remain there on a couple of different conditions, one of which is distance. If they're too far away from Aizawa, the mark will disappear. Other state is Aizawa's mental condition. If it somewhat deteriorates, or if he's knocked out, the marks will go away as well. Though there are somewhat limits, but his quirk's involvement will be incredibly useful. As we continue over back to Izuku, Sue, and Mineta, where Izuku just full on jumps going into the water this time. Instead of creating a force of air pressure to blast the water with it, he creates the water drill out of the opening of the gauntlet's palm to basically drill swim to the bottom, where he uses drill anchors coming out of the openings, handling the power into his feet, on the bottom of his feet, to anchor himself at the bottom. Lifting the water drill up, it's then reversed and spun rapidly to cause a powerful whirlpool, sucking in all of the villains as Sue and Mineta jump, with Mineta getting kind of pumped up from this and throwing the balls one after the other from his head. However, there are some differences. Sue seems to be able to jump a lot farther than she intended, being somewhat worried about this. Life-threatening situations will tend to life-threatening, well, life-threatening situation or high-stress situations concerning Zuko and uh, Melissa will cause them to evolve a bit. In terms of Sue, she Izuku influenced her with his spiral power, increasing her physical abilities of her frog powers, including greater control. So this is a simple but very useful buff. As for Mineta, and I know what you're going to say in the comments, but I I have to be fair to the whole concept of this. That means not excluding anybody. As he continues to throw balls one after the other, they start to pop off on their own consecutively while sticking together in a row, creating rows of sticky balls that latch on to villains, getting them trapped even more. As his quirk evolved to create what I suppose would be most accurate, would be considered being called grapevines from his head. So yeah. So before any of the villains get to the bottom of the whirlpool where the drill is, Izuku pulls it back into his hand and then creates a new one from his other hand to swim away, releasing the drill anchors on his feet. As they get to the shore, they see Aizawa is being pinned. Although he was able to block off Sigaraki's quirk with that mark on his neck, figuring out that something was up, that his theory was might have been wrong or something about Eraserhead's quirk, he sent in the Nomu, who now does have a red mark. Though after breaking Aizawa's arm, all the red marks Aizawa made on people unconsciously, knowing that he was doing that kind of thing, they all disappeared. As Azuku and Asui, as well as Ineta, see this, Izuku tells them to get to the others now. When they try to look at him to tell him to not do anything hasty, it's a bit too late. He's already blitzing towards the Nomu, creating a drill over his arm, making it nice and narrow, piercing the Nomu's shoulder and rocketing it directly to a wall, taking the Nomu with it as the drill pierces the very thick cement wall. It creates a drill anchor, holding the Nomu there for now. He's able to grab Aizawa and hurry up to get them to Sue and Mineta, telling them to leave. They aren't going to question this right now, considering the dire situations. As for the rest of the class, they were able to get uh, Ida out, though some things did change. For one, with Ochaka's evolved quirk of wholesale gravity control over the items he touches with her little paw pads, all she needed to do was touch the Kurogiri's actual body, then full on fling him up into the air. He still was able to get back to the young master, telling him that the student got away. As for Ida, he keeps running as fast as he can, being faster and faster. So something odd happened. Recently, we see, we see a flashback of him complaining to his family and such about some pains in his arms. More importantly, his forearms. As we go back, seeing that engine blocks are coming out of his forearms and are now helping him go even faster. Which, by the way, will also improve hand-to-hand combat for more powerful punches. So that's a boost. It, I would think something like Ida's quirk to evolve into something in his arms, not just his legs, would take some time to properly form. So there's that. As that's going on, let's switch over to the area where we see Jiro and Momo being frozen and not being able to do anything as Denki is being held hostage. So he's not really as dumb. He's starting to come back to a little bit more. Before anything, Alyssa uses her drills since she was on the opposite side of that particular zone. She was able to use her drill to go under the ground with it using the drill whip, emerge from behind the villain, and knock him out with a quick smack to the back of the head. Though they do end up meeting afterwards, they prioritize getting out of there. As we get back to the central area, where the Nomu pretty much ripped off its arm to get free, regenerated, causing Izuku to get very afraid after seeing that his drills might not be enough for this. But that is his current biggest fear after seeing this hulking beast just regenerate a arm it ripped off of itself. So yeah, it blitzed towards Izuku, more or less grabbing him in a giant bear hug to restrain him on Shigaraki's orders. This is when All Might finally bursts in, though, as he is not happy in this situation. So Shigaraki yells at him to stay where he is, or the kid's gonna get his back broken. And who knows, maybe even his lungs collapsed from Nomu squeezing down. All Might was seeing this, and he was not happy, though he knew that this guy wasn't lying. And from things he's seen with Izuku in the past, he can tell that from the fear inside Izuku's face, this thing is pretty dangerous, and there's no doubt that it would do it. As Shigaraki continues with a bit of a rant, stating that the only logical choice for you right now is to surrender to us. After all, even if the boy got free, it'd be impossible for you to defeat Nomu, as he brags about his multiple quirks, creating a full-on monster. This does piss off Zuko, as he looks at Shigaraki, telling him, "Logic? Really? Know what I gotta say about that? The hell with it. Just take your damn logic and burn it. As for the impossible, how about I give you a demonstration of doing the impossible?" As the green flames from his spiral power begin to burst from him. Drills from all the openings for his spiral energy to be channeled into to make drills burst out, creating a shock wave, sending the Nomu back a little bit, releasing its grip on Izuku. With Izuku quickly yelling at All Might to toss the Nomu up. He trusted Izuku enough, thinking that he probably has an idea. And if what Shigaraki said is true about his shock absorption generation, blunt attacks aren't going to be much help. But a drill might have a better chance. So quickly rushes the Nomu, grabbing it and tossing it up into the air. As Izuku raises his hand, furious, grips it as we see something very strange. The energy begins to form in the palm of his hands, creating some kind of weird green visor thing. And I think you know where I'm going with this by now. As he throws it, it splits into and hits the Nomu rapidly, stabbing both of its legs and arms to hold it still. As the drills around his body suck back into the ports and blast out of the palm surrounding his arm and just creating a giant drill as he yells, Giga, drill, break! He just blasted straight towards the Nomu, drilling clean through its torso to the point to where there's basically no torso at all. After which, well, the energy visors that were holding the Nomu's arms were strained as the Nomu began to regenerate. Shigaraki began to laugh, remarking that, idiots, he can regenerate. Though this was short lived once the energy visors blew up to finish the job properly. That Nomu's not getting back up. Though, with everything considered, All Might did lose his powers a bit earlier than in canon, so he's running on fumes even now. And Kurogiri just pulls Shigaraki back to the hideout as a retreat since they lost Nomu and the other heroes from UA will certainly be there, which they are there. And they do take out the remaining villains and such. After which all the students meet up in the front. All Might's able to debuff with Cementos blocking the view from the students with a wall. So giving Zuku a thumbs up and a big smirk, basically stating he did a good job. As everybody was set and clear, Momo was mentally exhausted from the day and sat down for a moment. Though when her hand placed on the ground, it slightly reformed. It was very noticeable to the people around her, as Denki yawned and accidentally fired a electricity bolt outward without any support gear to help him. Nezu was informed about this by one of the teachers who saw this, as he states, I suppose it can't be helped. We'll have to talk to the Hero Course students about this as soon as possible. Especially if this keeps happening and if this so-called League of Villains comes after UA again. So once they get there, Class 1A and Class 1B were gathered up, which is the first time in this What If that they will officially meet. As for the ones whose powers have changed, which in total, given the situation of life-threatening situations, or totaled up to the new ones, would be Sue, Mineta, Denki, Zero, Momo, and Aizawa would be the last one, I believe, in this instant. Now then, as they are told this and then brought back into the meeting room, Nezu begins to explain something about Izuku's quirk, explaining that Izuku's quirk seems to be a type of energy that causes evolution itself, and that those around him have begun to gain examples of their quirks evolving, gaining new properties, abilities, or strengthening and refining their powers even further, while also reducing any negative side effects from constant usage of it. This does shock them, as Mimina raises her hand asking, "What about Melissa? She has the same power, doesn't she?" Nezu chimes in stating, "Yes, though this part is top secret. So whatever you hear right now, I do wish for you to keep quiet on it, if you don't mind," stating that Melissa was actually born quirkless. It was only from her interactions from Izuku that she herself began to produce this energy that they are calling spiral power. As it turns out, those with quirks will have their quirks evolved. As for those without quirks, they themselves will begin to produce their own spiral energy power. This is a bit of a shock, and of course, Monama's pissed that Class 1A has two people like this, like in their class, that will be buffing them. But Nezu states that no, it's more like a form of exposure. The more you're exposed to their spiral energy by being around them, the more likely, or at least the sooner, your quirks will begin to evolve. Though there are some other aspects that would show when your quirks will evolve, but those are currently unknown. Though I suppose surviving a villain attack that would threaten your lives would definitely considered to be a excellent catalyst, although one that we do not recommend or condone. So yeah, Bakugo is questioned about this, and she states, "Yeah, I already know about that. It's how I got my charges," as he creates one of his orange energy balls, sending it up slightly to explode, remarking that he didn't have these until he was influenced by Izuku's work. So that was covered up for them. We talked about this and all that, with Class 1B thinking, as well as the others thinking about what their quirks would be evolved into. As for some more particulars about the ones I didn't talk about, Momo now has the ability, but she's been practicing on learning the qualities of it while the week while they have a week off at school. And she's basically gone full metal alchemist on us. As long as she understands the molecular structure of what she's touching, she can remold it. So it's can be used similar to Cemento's work, but at a somewhat lesser extent from full on control like Cemento's, as he can also transmute it into weapons and such. Though I would think she would still prefer to use the already base power of turning her fat into weapon. I mean, if you're gonna be able to turn something like the fat in your body into metal weapons, I don't think it'd be much of a leap in logic to for her to evolve or Quirk to evolve from this to turn one living object in turning one non-living object into another. So I would imagine it wouldn't be that much of a leap. As for Jiro, He's able to cause what I would like to call pinpoint sound bursts. She could stab her earphone jack into the ground now, or the wall and such, sending a pinpoint sound through it to be blasting at her target. So, for instance, she doesn't have her speakers in the scenario I'm trying to pose to explain her new power upgrade. So, yeah, jams her earphone jack into the ground, sends a sound burst through it that is highly controlled and then is released below the target. So, let's say she's 10 or 50 yards, let's say maybe about 20 yards away from a robot, three pointer, and she stabs her earphone jacks into the ground, sending sound waves into it that will then cause a sound burst from underneath the robot, destroying it, sending it up flying from it. So yeah, that's her upgrade. As Denki gets full electrokinesis. Pretty useful, though he still gets pretty dumb whenever he shorts out or uses up all his power. So he's able to better generate his own electrical power to use. As Aizawa is patched up and isn't as damaged, so is pretty grateful for Izuku's help with the evolving his quirk, thinking that it would make his job a lot easier now. So he'd need the practice. Figuring out he could actually control the mark he places to cancel out other people's quirks to be released on command from his will. However, now that we covered everything for the heroes, let's head over to the village, who are now hanging their heads in defeat. So the man over through the television is telling them that this was only their first strike, and it did shake their foundation. As Shigaraki was obviously not happy about this, but settled for it for now. Though they were interrupted, hearing a voice that states, I would not worry about that right now. With Shigaraki looking over, seeing this weird entity thing, couldn't tell what it was, as one also appeared in front of All for One. As he states, aren't you a curious? What exactly are you? As they began to speak in unison, explaining their situation, that they were the two last anti-spiral, unable to do anything to bring back their kind, they seeked revenge against the one who wronged them, though due to circumstances they were proving hard to find, and are no longer here, but their power still resides here, being basically being used by that Midoriya kid who is evolving the quirks of those within the Hero Corps. As All for One states, what do you want? They state, due to certain circumstances giving this world such, it would be far more plausible for us to do something similar. As they state that they will each give up their existence in order to give Shigaraki and All for One the power of the anti-spiral. Of course, this won't be as nearly as powerful as what we saw in the actual show. You know, considering that there's only two of them, I think having their planet in the forehead of the giant galaxy-side mech with all of their kind was probably the biggest thing that gave them a boost, and after the defeat, they did lose a lot of power, obviously. Shigaraki asked, let me kill that brat. And will it evolve me like them? They state, no. Our power is one of that goes against it, but it will increase your physical abilities at, as well as strengthen the power of your quirks. That is about it. It may also somewhat reduce any negative side effects, but it is simple. We are mainly just strengthening your core being. That is the power that you will be given, though it is quite great, as well as creating these, as they hold up their hands, creating anti-spiral drills. Shigaraki smirked, stating, "Alright, that's fine with me." With all for one stating, "Is there anything else we can know?" As they state, "Yes, you will also be able to produce a type of subcore. Once we merge with you, we will have a main core that will provide you with the power of the anti-spiral. However, you could take the energy from it, continue to generate on its own, create what we would call a subcore. You would be able to place these in your experiments, like that creature you made, and any other subordinate you wish to give them a similar boost, although perhaps not as great." With all for one smirking, he stated, "I think we have a deal then, though I'm surprised you don't want to kill him yourself." They state, "The one we sought to kill is no longer alive, and given the certain circumstances, we would fail yet again. This is the most optimal way, even if we need to take just even if we need to destroy our own existence and consciousness, as long as they die, we will we will consent to it." So the deal was struck. The anti-spirals placed their hands on the chest of All for One and Shigaraki as they just turned into purple energy flowing into their body, creating the anti-spiral core within them. Of course, it would take some time for it to properly integrate into their bodies, though they'll have time before they do a big face off with UA. Now, with all this said, I do hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching. This was part 3 of What If Deku Had Spiral Power. Do hope you enjoyed. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and make sure to hit that notification bell. Set it to all so that you're properly notified. And last but not least, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. See you later.